D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingen here with you on NFL Trade Deadline Day. We will keep you apprised of all things happening around the NFL and, of course, with the Tennessee Titans throughout the program. The NFL trade deadline, I believe, is 3 p.m. Central. Nothing happening with the Titans yet, though Jeremy Fowler of ESPN tweeted about an hour ago that the Titans have received inquiries on defensive line players, including Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day, per sources. Nothing has materialized as of this morning, but could be one to watch if a team steps up with a strong offer. So we will keep an eye on Arden Key.
Would that be like a Will Wade strong-ass offer? Would that be the type of offer we're talking about here?
Kinda, it could be.
We will see.
I mean, that's a real offer. I mean, that's what we're talking here.
Mm-hmm.
The big trade of the day so far, the Detroit Lions are acquiring former Pro Bowl defensive end Zadarius Smith in a trade with the Cleveland Browns.
Mm-hmm.
Those two have been linked for some time. The Lions are clearly going for it, and I don't blame them. They've been excellent this season. They acquire Zadarius Smith in a trade with the Browns. It is Smith and a 7th-round pick to Detroit for a 5th and a 6th. So if you're looking for any sort of comps for, say, a Harold Landry trade, perhaps, which I'm not expecting to happen, but something tells me if that were to happen, the blueprint has been provided for us of what that trade could look like.
There's a lot of 5ths and 6ths and 7ths. I think time will tell, but it'll be interesting. Like if you have like 7 6th-round picks, and you go 2 for 7, like that's good, right? Like I mean, this is everybody's like, who cares? It's a 6th-round pick, right? It's a 7th-round pick. But if you have like 3 of them, like hopefully one of them works, right? I mean,
yeah, you would hope.
That's the idea anyway, right?
You would hope that at least one of them hit.
But this is a good test because there is a lot of, what's the value? Jared has really gone off on the value of a 7th-round pick. He's been hammering away at Malik Willis has done really well, and all they got was a 7th-round pick, which amounts to a bag of footballs or whatever he says.
But was anybody going to give you more than that?
No, they got something. And
exactly.
Cortland Finnegan was a 7th-round pick. Like there are 7th-round picks that make the team and help the team.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on, who that guy is. So, I mean, 7th-round picks and 6th-round picks are not throwaway picks. They're not. Now, the likelihood of those guys sticking on your team are low, but it's not like, we will never find anything in a 7th-round pick, so we might as well not even take. Matter of fact, we just give you the guy and you keep your 7th-round pick. No, franchises, organizations don't think like that.
In the NHL, they call that future considerations.
Yeah,
Freddie Charles.
It's just,
which means nothing.
Listen, give me the pick and I give you the player. And then hopefully you can get enough of those picks that you could potentially, package them and, move up, maybe even around. You may see some trades today where, a 7th-round pick is involved. That's not going to stop a team from whether they're going to part ways with a guy or not. A lot of times they just want some compensation back just to make it feel like it was an even swap.
So according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, the Titans have received inquiries on Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day. We'll keep an eye on that and the rest of the NFL when it comes to the trade deadline, which is in a few hours. When we know something, you'll know something. So we will be monitoring this all show long. Willie will have to depart later in the program to join the Nashville Predators on their back-to-back road trip starting tomorrow night in Washington. Anything happening in Washington, D.C. tonight?
Maybe a little.
I don't think so.
Maybe a little something.
Anything going on in our country, particularly in Washington, D.C. tonight? I don't know.
What is the Wizards playing?
They might be
tonight?
playing.
I don't think so. I mean,
Wizards are playing.
they might be waiting for the Commanders to make a trade. That might be it. I think that's what it is.
Commanders are doing
And apparently, according to multiple reporters, players are clamoring to play for the Commanders. When
Oh,
was the
wow.
last time you heard that?
wow.
Man.
Oh, wow.
Are the Washington Bullets coming back? Willie
Wes-
liked that one.
Wes Unseld?
Yes.
Kevin Greavy.
Oh, man.
Bobby Dandridge.
Exactly.
Bring back the Baltimore
Yeah.
Bullets personally.
Wow, there you go.
Oh,
We
now
can
you're
go
going
even
way
further.
back. Now
Yes.
you're going way back.
Yes.
But
The Predators, they leave on a
Hmm.
sour note. They lose last night 3-0 to the Los Angeles Kings to drop to 4-7-1 on the season, 3-6-0 at home. 9 of their first 12 games at home. They lose 6 of 9. The Predators, a season low 16 shots on goal last night. They were trailing entering the third period. They gave up an early goal in the third period in the opening minute to former teammate for some of them, Kevin Fiala, former member of the Nashville Predators. So they're down 2-0 for the majority of the third period. It took them more than 16 minutes to get their first shot on goal. I believe it came with 3:55 left in the period, down 2-0. The Predators could not get a shot on goal for more than 15 minutes despite trailing. We keep talking about the same things. Last night, as I said, a season low in shots, but through most of the season, they've been at or near the top of the league in shots on goal per game. But that's a bit deceiving because this team has struggled to get shots on net from the areas of the ice that they need to. And what's even more mystifying about this, Willie, is last season, the Predators were one of the best teams in the league at getting shots on net from the slot, the inner slot, that so-called home plate area in front of the net where most goals are scored. They've gone from one of the best teams in the league at 5-on-5 particularly to one of the worst teams in the league. It's quite confounding what's been going on with the Predators and their inability to get to the high percentage scoring areas.
I think you said it well. I think that the troubling part right now, other than just the mindset, there's a mental part of it, and then there's the system part of it, the X's and O part of it, right? Two things. And they're both related, as you know, D-Mace. Like sometimes when you feel better mentally and you're confident, then the X and O's, they take care of themselves. But from the X and O standpoint, last year when they were 5-10, and they're right now 4-7-1, you could argue they're off to a better start than last year's team, who went 5-10 and then figured it all out. But last year, this is the thing that is a little worrisome. Last year, I think you saw the underlying numbers look a little better. Even when they were 5-10, you were saying the goaltending hasn't been great, but they are getting the quality looks. You were starting to see the framework, the DNA of a team that was doing the right things, playing the system. It just hadn't kicked in. This year, the analytics more match the record of the team. And the 5-on-5 is the most glaring problem. And the majority of the game is played 5-on-5. The special teams have been pretty good, but the 5-on-5, night in and night out, has been a very inconsistent situation. And last night, they faced a team that has very good structure. The Kings are one of the better teams at not letting you get to the home plate area. And unlike the Boston game, the one game where they really did well to get to that area against the tough defensive team, they didn't get anything last night. It was very frustrating, and that's where the mental part has come in. And there were some interesting comments by Andrew Brunette after the game about just the frustration. You could see it on their faces. They're looking around. You could see the confidence kind of sagging. They just couldn't get it going like they have, and they are constantly falling behind, so there's a higher stress level. And so it's taking its toll in frustration. And sometimes, as Andrew Brunette pointed out, the more frustrated you get, the worse it gets, the harder you try. Mm-hmm.
The more frustrated you get, the more focused you should become at getting the task done, whatever it may be. Now, the whole team is frustrated, and it's evident. And if you're not frustrated, then you don't have a competitive bone in your body. But you got to take that frustration and channel it the right way. Luke Shen, I'm gonna read this. Luke Shen said something interesting, and he talked about the frustration. He said the frustration was visible with the lack of offense, knowing that the team has plenty of forwards with scoring ability. There's a couple of guys in the league that can wind it up where they can play from the outside and create opportunities. We've got a couple of guys that can score from out there, but the majority of the goals are scored out around the paint. So he said, listen, it's kind of like basketball before the advent really of the 3-point. A lot of the baskets were scored in the paint. Yeah, you had shooters like Reggie Miller and guys like that can hit from outside, but the majority of the stuff was done in the paint. That's what the Predators, that's what Shen is saying. Like, we got a few guys that can, and we all know who those guys are, that can shoot it from the outside, they can one-time it from the outside. But if we want to start winning consistently and doing things consistently, a lot of those goals has to start from the end and inside and then work its way out. It seems like they're playing perimeter basketball right now. And listen, if your shots are not falling, you're not going to win. Yeah. And their shots are not falling. So what they have to do is find a way to get in the paint now and get some of those mucky goals. And I think that's a lot of the frustration, because it's like, we see it's not working outside. Let's go inside.
And it's not easy.
Exactly.
Hockey,
and it's not easy
to get in there. You got to pay a price. You got to take. And I did think in the second period last night, they did try to turn up the intensity. Luke Shen picked a fight with Tanner Jeannot, and that was maybe the highlight of the game. They were going at it. And I mean, Tanner Jeannot is one of the most popular Predators, and we know how tough Tanner Jeannot is. And Luke Shen took him down. Like he got, and they had met a couple times before. They were going at it. So they tried to change the tone. Ryan O'Reilly got into a fight. He rarely ever, I think it was only his second ever in the regular season fighting major. But there was kind of a little cheap shot, he thought, on Gus Nyquist, and he said, let's go. So they tried to get the intensity going, but it didn't turn into what you're talking about, D. Mason. That is just demanding to find the puck in the paint, in the scoring area, getting your nose in there and fight. It sounds easy for being to say this, but this is how it's done. Luke Shen said it well. And the Kings, to their credit, they never let him get in there. They made it very easy on their goalie. I didn't think Darcy Kemper had to work very hard to get the shutout last night.
The Predators have scored 12 goals at 5-on-5 in 12 games. So 1 5-on-5 goal per game. 12 is the lowest total in the NHL, which is not something that we expected from the Predators when they spent the money they did in free agency to sign 2 40-goal scorers. Wes and Hermitage on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, asks, what are the chances that Bruno can't play this style of fast hockey with these old players he signed? It seems like they aren't fast enough to run this scheme. What do you make of that?
It was asked last week at this time, and I think it's going to get asked until it looks different. My answer is going to be the same. It's still, we're 1 month into a 6-month season. They were 5-10 last year. Although, as I said, the numbers do look different. But I think there's a belief that if they get it, there will be dividends on the other side. But it's fair to ask the question. I don't know that. I don't know how difficult that is. You'd have to ask, somebody like Hal Gill or a player of how tough it is to change the system midstream.
Are you saying that Hal Gill was slow?
No, I'm saying Hal Gill's played in a lot of systems where the coaches get changed,
but also slow.
Or a coach makes an adjustment. Yeah, I think Hal Gill
is slow now.
Liked a little.
He's probably faster than me still on the ice, but he's slow.
A little more leisurely system. Right?
Yes, exactly.
But I do think this is what you hear about and Andrew Burnett's the first to say. It's taxing to play this system. You have to bring it every night. You can't just cruise along and say we'll outskill you. You have to have a high motor to play it. But let's use Ryan O'Reilly as an example. He is not a fast skater at all. He thrived in that system last year. So it can work. Even for a player who is older, right? And not Gus Nyquist. Is he a Blazer? Not at all. Not at all. He had his best year ever last year. So I do not think it is the old guys can't play this fast system. I don't believe that. Otherwise, Nyquist, O'Reilly, guys like that would not have thrived like they did. I think O'Reilly and Nyquist might have had those guys have played a lot of years in the league. They were among their best regular seasons. O'Reilly's had some great years, obviously, but Nyquist had a career year. O'Reilly, maybe top 5, as far as all around play, first line. He was an incredibly effective player last year.
Now, was this a younger team last year? And I'm asking
maybe
a serious
slightly,
question because I don't know. But I know there were a lot of, sort of guys without a lot of experience playing last year because of the situation they were in, trading off guys, and seeing, hey, listen, we're going to give this a shot, and if it works. And Barry said, either the way y'all players are going to tell me to make trades and make changes or not. So I guess those young guys that they brought up or whatnot, those guys went out and they did what they were supposed to do. And obviously Barry didn't make too many moves toward the latter part of the season. But I'm just wondering, because sometimes in sports, when your back is completely against the wall, or when you have nothing to play for, then you go out there and you just play you play carefree, hockey or football or whatnot. Because there's no expectation. The expectation is to go out there and play your hardest and see where that lands you. But then once you start to add in expectations, I think it sort of changes things just a little bit. Now you're not going out there, especially if you're not winning. Now you're not going out there playing so carefree. Now you're a little bit tense. Now you're a little bit hesitant with what you do. Now you don't truly trust what's in front of you.
I think
it's a hesitation across the board, and that slows you down.
I think you can appreciate as a receiver when they talk about that chemistry that a receiver and a quarterback have, or a receiving group, like the play that's drawn up. There's 3 options. We're reading the defense. We know the coverage. And when everybody's on the same page, you don't even think about it, right? And the quarterback, it's just autopilot. It's boom. This is where he's going to be. D-Mace is going to be open right over here. I think that's what's missing. You hear the players talking about it. If there's one, this because they play so fast, then there's a lot of anticipation. There's a lot of trust involved. If one guy is off, it throws off the whole thing. Andrew Brunette said, this is something to look for as you're watching the Predators play. He said, when we're playing well, you'll see all 5 gold jerseys in the TV screen. That's what to look for. The spacing is right. Everybody's in the right spot. If one guy's off, it can throw the whole play off. And so I think that's happening way too often right now.
There's too much hesitation going on,
right?
Because they don't trust one another,
right?
Fully.
I think that's a big thing.
One thing that's important to keep in mind, to Derek's point, is last season, it felt like everything good that happened with the Predators was like a cherry on top, because expectations were low for the Predators last season. Barry Trotz tempered those expectations. When they struggled out of the gate, certainly fans were frustrated when they were 5-10, but they understood what the plan was from Barry Trotz. It could be good, it could be bad. He was clear about that. When they made the postseason, I remember being on with the two of you in Caroline. We were talking about, the playoffs and the series against the Canucks. And I said, at this point, it feels like everything that happens is just gravy for the Predators, because we didn't expect them to be in the postseason. Most people did not expect them to be in the postseason. But to Derek's point, when you spend the money they did in free agency, you bring in the caliber of players, the name brand players that they brought in, and they're struggling. Not the team is struggling, and those players are struggling too.
Yes.
Steven Stamkos has not been good. He has 0 goals at 5-on-5. Jonathan Marchessault had an unbelievable goal to win the game in overtime against the Columbus Blue Jackets a couple of weeks ago. Outside of that, he hasn't had too many memorable moments on the ice. Even Brady Shea is struggling mightily. So I understand where that frustration is with Predators fans. And the thing that's really stuck out to me, particularly with Steven Stamkos, my concern entering the season and even in the offseason when they first signed all of those players was how much of a drop off in production should we expect from Steven Stamkos, who, as Willie knows, is not a play driver at 5-on-5 anymore. He is not the engine that is going to get a line to go at this stage of his career. He was going from playing with two of the best players in the world, in my opinion, Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point. And now he's playing with a rotating cast of centers. He played center once himself in a game this season, but Juuso Parssinen, Colton Sissons, Tommy Novak, none of them have been able to hold down that spot. And I'm concerned that I agree with Willie. I do think that Steven Stamkos is too good of a goal scorer to be this, to have this lack of production over the course of a full season. But I have just been so unimpressed with his performance at 5-on-5 this season.
Well, there's two different things because I think the power play, he has done exactly what the doctor ordered.
I would agree
other than the puck hasn't gone in.
I would agree with that.
But he has been rifling shots. His shooting percentage is way down from what it normally is. I think we showed it last night. His overall shooting percentage for his career is over 16%. That's a really high percentage. And he's only got 2 goals. He's getting the shots. So I think the power play, that's what they had in mind when they signed him. The 5-on-5 part, there's no question, is a problem. And the other part of it, I think it's reasonable to say, well, this is where he is in his career. He's maybe not quite the play driver that he used to be 5-on-5, but the rest of his line, if somebody's a play driver and Marchessault's been on his line most of the time, then it still should create opportunities for Steven Stamkos. And collectively, they just have not figured that out. The fourth line looks better now that Colton Sissons is down there. That looks more like a fourth line that's doing more of the things that a fourth line should do. Grind, create energy, get you an occasional scoring chance. Colton Sissons had the best chance of anybody last night on a breakaway, got robbed by Kemper. The first line, I think, has been pretty reliable. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist. But lines 2 and 3, especially 5-on-5, have been just have not been able to drive anything 5-on-5, and it's been really surprising for different reasons.
We'll see if the Predators can get back on track tomorrow against a surprisingly good Washington Capitals team, 6-1 at home. Alex Ovechkin, 9 points in his past 4 games. He has scored goals in all 4 of those games. He is 34 goals from tying Wayne Gretzky for most in NHL history. We shall see if the if the Predators can prevent Alex Ovechkin from scoring and get a win tomorrow night. They sorely need one. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, our friend Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, will join us. We'll talk Titans. We'll talk the NFL trade deadline and more. But tomorrow, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night against the Capitals, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning at 8:45.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. A lot of you out there might be in the same boat, and it's something that we all deal with from time to time. You got bills to pay. And if you're one of those that have credit card debt where the interest rate, you're like, man, I got to catch up on this. Or you're paying for a car and you've got to make those car payments and the interest rate is pretty high. Look into Loan Pronto and their Express Equity line of credit program. They can get you thousands of dollars out of your home's equity with a better rate, and then you can take that cash and pay off the debt. That is a really interesting tool and an effective tool that has helped a lot of customers for Loan Pronto. Their average client saves over $1,000 every month with this program. So with an Express Equity line of credit, you can access up to 90% of your home's equity, usually without an appraisal. So just give them a call right now. Get your financial house in order for the new year. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com by our friend Tim Hasselbeck. First of all, Tim, congratulations on a 10-0 season with the Ensworth Tigers. I understand you have a bye in the first round of the playoffs.
That's right. Thank you. First round bye. So it's been good. It's been good.
So you can't lose. You can't lose.
Not
like
this
that
week,
Eli
at least.
Manning tailgating commercial.
Exactly.
Right? Like we can't lose. That's good. That's good. I'm sure D. Mace, was sitting in his palace live streaming our game. I did expect you to make the drive out to Memphis, teammates. But, actually, who am I kidding? That was probably a private jet for you to Memphis. You probably don't do the drive.
Hey, when y'all play a little bit closer to home, then I come. So
next Friday when we host a game,
there you go. There you go, right there.
So, Tim, I want to start with the play at the end of the Titans-Patriots game in regulation. Drake Maye's touchdown. He held the ball for nearly 12 seconds before finding Ramondre Stevenson in the end zone to force overtime. I would love if you could take us into the mind of a quarterback, seeing as you are a quarterback, and what a quarterback does in that situation. It was an incredible play by Drake Maye, but take us through what it's like as a quarterback in that situation.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times as a quarterback, you're coached to have, this internal clock in your head of how long you can hold on to the football. But I think, and that oftentimes dictates, your timing, how you play, when you get rid of the football, that type of stuff. But then obviously there are a few like rare circumstances where, it's different. And the idea of like, the clock in your head, that has to go out the window, and it's just about making a play. It's fourth down. It's a 2-point play. It's an end of the game scenario. And so, yeah, like I think that's kind of the feeling as a quarterback when you get in that environment is, okay, like I've got to do something. Now I'm abandoning kind of everything I've been taught as a quarterback in terms of timing I need to play with or things that I can and can't do with the football. And I just need to find any way to make a play to give my team a chance. And so, I know that I talked to you guys, pre-draft about how I felt about Drake Maye. Look, he is so talented, and that's a wild play. I think the only other guy I've seen with a play to go like a similar length is Donovan McNabb had a play against the Dallas Cowboys years ago that like felt like a 14-second play. But it was an incredible play by him. It's obviously hard to cover for that long. And typically if a guy can stay alive for that long, he's going to find someone open.
The NFL, since it began tracking these statistics, I think it was in 2016, the only other touchdown where the quarterback held the ball longer than Drake Maye was Jaden Daniels' Hail Mary the previous week. So
yeah, that's incredible.
It's
good.
Yeah.
That one kind of feels different. Like a lot of times you see quarterbacks. Yeah, but like that's a very similar thing. Okay, Hail Mary, if it's where you can reach the field or reach the end zone, then that's great. You can throw it in the end zone, but you also have to give guys the time to get down there. And so going back a week, like that was obviously a great job. Look at that, 2 young quarterbacks, making insane plays for the team.
Today is the NFL trade deadline, 3 p.m. Central, if I'm not mistaken. The Titans made a couple of trades a couple of weeks ago, trading DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones. There are reports that they could be looking to move one of their defensive linemen, such as Arden Key or Sebastian Joseph Day. If you were in the Titans' shoes, if you were Ran Carthon, how would you approach today? Would you make any more moves if you were the Titans?
Yeah, I think it would have to be great, and I would have to feel like I was really winning the trade. And I think some of that has to do with like coming off of this week's game, a little bit of optimism in the locker room. Because even if you are making the decision that you're building for the future, like you still have a long way to go. And like morale in your building matters. I mean, like look at the Saints, for example. Like, look, that was a team that had high aspirations. And then, things start to not go well because of injuries and other things. And then the next thing you know, like the wheels have completely come off. You can't find a win, and now you're firing your head coach. And I'm not saying that would happen here, but like, so I do think that even when you're rebuilding, you have to have an idea for how morale in the building is. So like, I want to do it just to do it. I would have to really feel like it was a great deal because you were taking advantage of somebody who, had a situation of need.
We'll talk with Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the undefeated Innsworth Tigers, who have a bye this week. So I can't wait to see them play the next following week.
This is the 1 week you're going to come out to campus. You come out to Frisk campus out on Highway 100 on Friday night. You're going to be like, hey, Tim, I was here. Where is everybody? Come on, don't do that.
No, dang it. The jig is up.
I can see you being like, I don't want to deal with the parking. I don't want to deal with parking. I'm going to come out this Friday.
It's like, man, I came out, wasn't nobody there, man. Come on. Didn't nobody give me the memo. But is this because obviously, there's a lot going on in regards to Will Levis and the injury, him not playing well at the beginning of the season when he was a starter, to when is he going to be back underneath center? And Brian Callahan has said, listen, when he's healthy, he's our guy. But even with that being said, is this sort of like the final chance for Will Levis to change the minds of those that are going to be making, the decisions when it comes to the draft and who they draft or what quarterback they may draft?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. Like I got a text from somebody during the Seattle game this week, and I don't know if you guys, how closely you saw, but basically Geno Smith throws 2 terrible interceptions. It basically, is why they end up losing the game. Obviously, Stafford makes some plays late in the game, for the Rams to win it. But the text I got was, well, Seattle's going to be drafting a quarterback, and so, yeah, like 100%, like that. Assuming he's back in the lineup, if we think that that's what's going to happen based on what Brian Callahan said. He's also kind of, he's putting his resume out there for the rest of the league, a little bit like guys like Drew Lock or Mason Rudolph, guys that had opportunities to be starters, Jameis Winston, like whoever it may be, the guys that were starters, that what they did was they maybe played themselves into a different role in their time in the National Football League. So, I just say that to say that, like, there's a lot of pressure on Will Levis. So even when you talk about a team that's like, oh, these aren't meaningful games in November and December, for a young quarterback, you can kind of just go out there and play free and cut it loose. Like, not really, because you're actually kind of playing for your football future. Mm-hmm. So there's immense pressure, I think, on guys in those situations.
Now, quickly, let me segue out of the Titans and go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm watching Kansas City yesterday, and it occurred to me, are they this sort of generation's version of the New England Patriots, or this generation's version of the San Francisco 49ers when they were winning championships? Because you look at them, as you watch them play, they have some key players, more importantly, the quarterback and then the defensive lineman in Jones. But this isn't a team that has like superstars littered everywhere. But because of the head coach and the quarterback combination, it just seems like no matter what happens in the game, they always have a chance to win. And it was that way no matter what was going on in the game in New England. You knew if the game was close, you had a chance to win it. Because why? Bill Belichick, but most importantly, Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, it 100% is. I would actually say this, and I felt this way when he was in Philadelphia. There was a stretch where it was Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb, and the defensive coordinator was Jim Johnson. And I think it was like 4 straight NFC championship games or something. No, they just happened to kind of run into greatest show on turf. Then they ran into, a Tampa team that was extremely loaded. But Andy was that good back then. And so I think like the run that Belichick had and all that stuff, obviously like for a long time, everyone's like, hey, greatest coach of all time, clearly with Brady, greatest quarterback of all time. And they were, pairing those two, as the reason. But also Belichick was a defensive coordinator, had guys like Dean Pease and others that were doing a good job with the defense. I really think, especially when you look at what the Chiefs have been on offense this season, and then look at what the Chiefs were on offense early last season in their struggles. Like, they were a defensive-led team at times last year early in the season. And I think you could say that same thing about him. And just the way that people would talk about Dick LeBeau at the Steelers, like, I think you need to talk about Steve Spagnuolo like that, as like maybe the greatest defensive coordinator ever. Like, what, in terms of what he's done. So yeah, I think it's Andy. I think it's Patrick Mahomes. And then I think the piece that doesn't get talked about enough, and I think he's that good, is Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator. So yeah, I think they are like this era's, that team, because I mean, like, look, maybe the Lions will be good enough, maybe, but like, that's always been the case. Like, there's maybe, but like, if you said, all right, like, who should be the favorite? Who is the favorite? Yeah, it's got to be Kansas City.
Talking to Tim Hasselbeck. Tim, I don't know if you were watching live last night, but I didn't get to see the game. I did see at the very end the Bucs tie it, and there was a lot of talk that they did an amazing job to get back and get to that point without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, and here they are. Should they have gone for two in your mind in that moment? It's easy to say it today, the day after, but like in the moment where you think, because I did stop and say, are they going for one or are they going for two? And I saw Baker Mayfield sprinting off the field. It didn't look like they even pondered it.
Yeah, I think that's one of those situations where whatever you have in your book, like whatever the sheet says, I think exactly what you're talking about is like why you can't always go off of the sheet, right? So I don't know if you saw it. I was actually a couple weeks ago, I was at the Harvard Holy Cross game, okay? And it ended up being on Van Pelt's Bad Beats. That's why you would have seen it. But essentially what happened was Holy Cross ties the game after 2 Hail Mary attempts. I mean, it was wild. Or sorry. So they're down 1. After 2, they actually connect on the second Hail Mary, basically. And next thing you know, like, they just, without batting an eye, boom, we're going for 2. And they don't get it. And you're like, oh my gosh. And actually another game, Eastern Michigan had a game this weekend where they went for 2 to win it at the end. And so, yeah, I think it's easy now, sitting here now, knowing the result and all that stuff, to be like, I should have gone for 2. But like, you don't always get it. And then when you don't get it, you could say, well, man, like, you had the best team in the league, on the ropes, and you had momentum. And
I guess that's the question, is when you are clearly the underdog, and you're thinking, okay, if we lose the coin toss, which is exactly what happened. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes gets it, and it's game over. You never get the ball back. So when you're the decided underdog, that's what you're talking about, Tim, is that's not on the chart, right? That's the feel.
Oh,
that's the argument for, hey, if you lose, okay, but this was your best chance to win, not giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and then to your point, the personnel part of it, where you're like, oh, not only do we have these guys against the ropes and we're the underdog, like, we're really the underdog because, like, our best players aren't here with us. So, look, I think in that environment, look, I hate being the Monday morning quarterback thing on it. I think in that environment, going for 2 was the most. Like, I do, in that environment. But, like, I don't hate the move by Todd Bowles to say, look, conditions aren't bad. This offense, this Chiefs offense has not been amazing all year long. Like, we like our chances, and we feel like we have some momentum, and like the coin toss might go our way, So like, I don't, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think it's right to consider it. I think the fact that he didn't hesitate, I think maybe gives you a glimpse into like what he was thinking. I think if there's hesitation, then you could maybe question the decision. But I think because there was no hesitation, I would find no fault in him.
Tim, if I'm reading this playoff bracket correctly, your Ensworth team will face the winner of Briarcrest and MBA in the next round, which means you will be pitted up against potentially Chris Sanders. There might be some division on this station.
Hey, can y'all beat that brakes off?
Never mind. There's no division, I
There's
guess.
never no division. I'm an Ensworth father. There's not a division whatsoever. I hope y'all beat the brakes off of them if y'all play.
Is that right? Well, listen, we don't know who will play. Whoever we play, I'm sure the really talented week 2 opponent. So, hey, listen, it's about, obviously you guys are going to get the message. It's about us right now. We're focusing on us, okay? I'm gonna give
Coach talk, yes.
I'll give you, hey, listen, it used to drive me crazy. I just want everyone to know, like, I am fully invested in coach speak, okay? Fully invested.
Life by bumper sticker.
Yes. You know what I mean?
Man.
Fully invested. Hey, great opponents, really just about us and what we can do better. And the only reason I can say this right now is that all of our football players are in class.
Exactly.
Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, coach speak extraordinaire, joining us as he does every Tuesday. Tim, we'll talk next week.
All right, sounds good. One practice at a time. Guys, one show at a time.
That's right.
One show at a time.
One segment at a time.
One show.
We just bagging them. That's
one
all we
segment
do.
at a time. Yep, that's right. Thanks, Tim.
See you,
Appreciate it.
Yep.
You just want him to beat the brakes off of Chris Sanders.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
First, NBA has to get past Briarcrest,
Yeah, you got a
and
point
then they could play Tim Hasselbeck's mighty Ensworth Tigers. 615-737-1025. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee will release its first of 6 rankings tonight. What are we expecting? We'll break that down next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hi, Nashville. What's going?
That is.
All right, let's tell you about League Company. Proud sponsor, Nashville Predators. No, it was not the most fun night at Bridgestone Arena last night, but there will be other games. The Predators looking to bounce back, and tomorrow they'll be in Washington, D.C. to take on the Capitals, and we'll have radio coverage right here on 102.5 The Game, sponsored by League Company. They have all of your needs when it comes to your home, taking care of it, making sure you're on top of things, making sure you don't have to stress when the cold months hit. Because if you're a customer of League Company, you will get your heating unit checked, and you get it checked now before the crisis happens. And hey, when it gets cold, if something breaks down, they're going to be there for you. 615-567-1000 or leaguecompany.com. Just keep that number and that website top of mind and hit it up if you need a maintenance issue or you want to build a year-round relationship with League Company and get that annual checkup. They're going to have you covered because they've been doing it in our listening area since 1944, 80 years of service. It's League Company, proud sponsor of Nashville Predators. Once again, 615-567-1000 or leaguecompany.com.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee will release its first of 6 rankings tonight at 6 p.m. Central. I'm curious what the committee thinks of the college football season so far. I'm particularly intrigued by what they make of Alabama and whether Alabama, a 2-loss Alabama team, could sneak into the playoff. I'm curious about their feelings on Indiana, the undefeated Indiana Hoosiers. Sorry, Derek. I know that they beat Michigan State over the weekend.
They didn't just beat them. Embarrassing.
Of course, I'm curious about Tennessee and where they fall into all of this. So as we await the first official rankings in the college football playoff,
all right,
what intrigues you most?
This is what intrigues me. I for years at D-Mace, you'll remember this whole thing, this whole exercise of, ooh, here come the rankings on Tuesday night. Let's see who number 4 is. I every year would say this doesn't mean anything. Honestly, you could have been on that committee a couple years ago when they were choosing 4. You could have done absolutely no work at all. You could have done all the work you wanted, or you could have mailed it in, and it would not have mattered one bit until the last vote. And that's when you had to decide, okay, who's number 4, who's number 5, right? And a lot of years, just like last year when Florida State was undefeated, you had some things to consider with the injuries. Now that's where it gets tough. But in November, who cares who number 4 is? But now, this year, with the new playoff format and at-large bids and everything, there is a lot more that you have to be tracking. Tiebreakers, strength of schedule. This is a little bit more like the NCAA basketball committee, where there's a lot more work involved. So now I am definitely paying more attention. So in case you were wondering, you're not going to get the speech from me every year when whoever was hosting at the time, Caroline or Chase, or here come the ratings on Tuesday. Who's going to be number? I would always say, who cares? Yeah. It doesn't matter. There's a whole month of football left. This is much more intriguing.
Well, this is what I'm going to be interested in, because if you just look at the regular rankings, it's totally different from the college power football or football power index. It's totally different from that. So are they going to lean more toward the college football power index, which has Texas number 1? Or will they go to the other, just the regular rankings, where I think they have, is it
Oregon?
Oregon's number 1. So you have one that says Oregon's number 1, but you have another that says Texas is number 1. Where are they going to see teams like Miami, who's 9-0, Indiana, who's 9-0, BYU, who's 8-0.
Boise State is another interesting team.
So where are they going to slot these teams as we speak?
It's actually going to take work.
Exactly.
And making tough decisions.
Absolutely.
You've got a lot more decisions to make.
Is a 1-loss Georgia, will they be placed in front of a Indiana team that's undefeated?
And people are going to be tracking if they come out and say, well, here's why we have this team. Because in a month, if you change your mind, they're going to go back and quote you. All these fans are going to say, well, but you said on November 4th or 5th, this is what it was. And that's how you decided it, because it's been very arbitrary, but now you got really tough decisions.
Yeah, you do. So, and then, they added in, okay, if a player gets hurt, that affects. If you marquee player get hurt, that affects you in the standing. So there are a bunch of new things that they're putting in here that is going to affect whether your 9-0 or 8-0 Indiana Hoosiers will be ranked above a 7-1 Ohio State.
We have a major trade in the NFL to announce. The New Orleans Saints are trading 4-time Pro Bowl cornerback Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders. The Saints fired their coach. We talked about this the other day. I was quite giddy about that. But the fire sale appears to be on in New Orleans. The Commanders are acquiring Marshawn Lattimore. They're going for it. The Commanders are indeed going for it. So Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders. No return on that yet, according to multiple reports, but big trade in the NFL. And we'll keep an eye on all things NFL trade deadline, especially as they relate to the Tennessee Titans. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, speaking of trades that the Tennessee Titans made, DeAndre Hopkins had quite the game last night, and then he did something that got a lot of people talking. We'll do that next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. They're going for it, baby.
What's the return? Do we know?
Not yet.
There are a lot of trades, which makes me wonder if the Titans will make one more.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain. With tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more, they will customize a program specific to you and no one else. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingen here with you. If you're listening, I just want to let you know that we're going to have a special edition of Ask D-Mace today at 12:30 because we forgot about Ask D-Mace last week. We were wrapped up in so many things, and I felt so terrible that we did not have Ask D-Mace at its normally scheduled time on Fridays. So we're going to hit you with an extra special edition of Ask D-Mace at 12:30. So if you have questions for Derek, you can text us. You can call us 615-737-1025. But before we get there, last night, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Monday Night Football. DeAndre Hopkins had an excellent game for the Chiefs. He had, let me make sure I have this right, 8 receptions for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had an incredible catch in triple coverage to set up his first touchdown. And then he hit him with the Remember the Titans dance in the end zone. And there was a lot of discourse online about DeAndre Hopkins' decision to do that particular dance, the Remember the Titans, emphasis on Titans, dance. Our own Jared Stillman even tweeted at one point, was it a diss or a sign of respect? And I thought to myself, who does touchdown dances as a sign of respect? My thought was he's like
good classy guys do.
Right. My thought was you don't do a touchdown dance to show respect. You do a touchdown dance to rub it in. And that was my thought, that DeAndre Hopkins was throwing a little shade at the Tennessee Titans. But he was asked about it after the game. This is what DeAndre Hopkins said about his touchdown dance last night for the Chiefs.
DeAndre, it seemed like the social media fans really enjoyed the Remembering the Titans celebrations. What went into that?
That's one of my favorite movies. So, I knew if I got in the end zone, I was going to hit the Remember the Titans.
So that was DeAndre Hopkins explaining his touchdown dance last night. And I'm sure DeAndre Hopkins caught wind of all the chatter because earlier today, he quote tweeted a picture of himself, a video of himself dancing. It was actually meshed with the Remember the Titans dance, and said, quote, "It was a shout to Tennessee. If you know me, you know it's nothing but love for Nashville. Rand and his crew are like family. Without them, I wouldn't be here." So that was DeAndre Hopkins.
That's the truth.
Is saying it is a sign of respect. But initially, I'm like, Derek, I'm sure you've done plenty of touchdown dances in your life. Did you ever do one where you're like, I'm going to show respect for my opponent by dancing in the end zone?
Nah, not one bit.
So when you saw that last night, Derek, what did you think?
I mean, you could have took it both ways. I mean, I can understand fans taking it as a diss. I can understand fans taking it as a homage and a tribute to the Tennessee Titans. It just depends on where you're at. Are you upset that he left? If that's the case, then you're going to look at it from the standpoint of he was dissing him. If you don't feel that way, you like D-Hop, then you're going to say it was a tribute or respect to the Tennessee Titans. He's right about one thing, I'll tell you that. It is because of the Tennessee Titans that he's here right now, because they chose to trade him to a team that, many picked to at least be in the Super Bowl, and I'm sure not too many people are picking against them to win. So yeah, he's right when he says, it's because of Rand and those guys that I'm here. He's literally right about that, because they could have kept him. As many people around here screamed and yelled, "Keep him! Why trade him away? Why not?" What he's given us here, and it's not his fault, but what he's given us here ain't helping us win games. Allow him to go somewhere else, and because people don't understand this. When there's not the each and every day, the like pressure to, especially as you start to get older, the pressure to be that number one guy. When there's not that pressure, you can go out there and you can play. He had the pressure because Calvin Ridley wasn't playing well. He had the pressure of being that. He had to be that guy.
The quarterback wasn't quite
exactly,
as good
and the quarterback
Patrick
wasn't
Mahomes.
as good. But when you go to Kansas City, you are a guy amongst a bunch of other guys. He's not their first option. And I think I said this when he got traded. He's going to work well in Kansas City because he's their third down guy, and he's another red zone threat that they need. And also, he doesn't have to be the guy. He is the third or fourth option in the pass offense with a hell of a quarterback. And you know you're going to get the ball no matter what.
If he has a few more games like this,
Mm-hmm.
are people going to be saying, man, that's a steal? They should have gotten more.
No, you
for
can't
D-Hop.
say that. I mean, you can say
It'll
that.
be a Monday morning quarterback kind of reaction, but he does look like he's going to be a nice fit role-wise, right?
Oh,
You got
yeah, he
Kelsey,
fits the role.
You got Hopkins, you got the deep threat and Worthy. It's like, ooh, it's coming together, and nobody can beat the Chiefs.
Because
right
it was
now.
the same thing with Juju Smith-Schuster. If you watched him the year before he got to Kansas City, they were writing him off.
Yes.
Like, didn't nobody want to sign him? Then he goes to Kansas City, and he has a resurgence. Why? Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And you don't have to be the guy because they got a bunch of them. Same thing for D-Hop. He went to the best place possible, the most ideal place. Because when you have arguably the best quarterback in the game today, and it's not arguably, he is, and you have the best head coach in the game and play caller in the game, only thing you got to do is show up and catch the football and be ready because they're going to give you an opportunity. And he fell. He's probably, if I was him, I would send Rand a text every day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sending me to the Kansas City Chiefs.
What percentage of the snaps did he play last night? Do we have that?
Yes,
I will take a look. I will take a look. But before we get to Bob on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, this is from Mike Triplett, who covers the New Orleans Saints. The Saints send Marshawn Lattimore and a 2025 fifth rounder to the Commanders for a 2025 third, fourth, and sixth. So 3 draft picks in this upcoming draft from the Commanders to the Saints.
Well, Commanders are like, F them picks. Have them all.
That's not quite the Ricky Williams and the Saints.
Exactly.
Mike Ditka, but it's getting the neighborhood there.
It's pretty close.
Hey, take all those picks. We going for it.
Right. I mean, look, it's been a while since the Commanders were in the position that they are in right now. So I don't begrudge them at all for doing that. Bob is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He wants to talk to DeAndre Hopkins. Bob, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. As far as D-Hop's dance last night, I think it was show respect for the Titans. And the reason I say that is go look at what he did prior to that last night. When he got traded, the Titans were trading him to a contender. He always said he loved it here. There was no animosity at any time prior to that. So that's why I wouldn't think it was a diss. I think he really appreciated that Titans put him in a good situation. And from everything I've heard, he actually loves it here anyway, even if he's not playing for us. So, I mean, I think it was to honor the Titans for taking care of him and just being a classic guy.
Thank you, Bob. And you can tell he did an interview after the game on the field as well. As you said, Derek, it means a lot to him to have this opportunity. It really does. You can tell that having the opportunity to play for a legitimate Super Bowl contender, which he's not something he's done very many times in his career, it means a lot to him. You can tell.
This is probably the second time he's played for a legitimate Super Bowl contender. 1 year with Deshaun Watson in Houston, and then obviously now in Kansas City. Because I don't even think the team he was with in Arizona, they were a contender, but
they were a good team.
Exactly,
but they weren't. I don't think. There was 1 year where they started off really well.
7-0, yeah, 7-0.
But I don't think,
but he ended up getting hurt that year.
But I don't think anyone thought of that team as a legitimate championship team.
So this year, this is the second time he's truly been on a legitimate team. And he's right. You know, you can't help but just be respectful or show respect to Rand Carthon or whoever else decided to say, okay, we're going to trade you to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 5th round pick, potentially a 4th. Because I guarantee you there were other teams out there that were looking for his services, but they chose to go with Kansas City.
Willie, I have an update for you. Guess what percentage of snaps DeAndre Hopkins played on offense last night?
Last night?
Yes.
I did not see the game, so I have no
60%.
Right at 60%.
This is good.
He played 60% of the snaps last night.
But in the first game, he Did he even play? Like he did dress, right?
He
But
played. He had
but
like 2 catches.
So we got some catch. We need some 80s. We need some 90s
Yeah.
to get it up to 60.
Well, if he plays as well as he did last night,
they're going to get him out there.
they're going to get him out
Okay.
there. That's what you're rooting for.
Yes.
If you're a member,
Until week
if
18.
you're a Titans fan, you're rooting for Deion. Look,
You got to be a quasi Chiefs fan because they have to win the Super Bowl too.
right.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not either or. Both things
It's
have to
got
happen.
all has to happen.
They should have. It should have gone up to a third. Like the Chiefs would gladly give you a third
No, they wouldn't.
if they won the Super Bowl and he did 60. Like, what are the chances that's going to happen?
That's a high likelihood
20%
that they
for both?
do win the
Like
Super
he has
Bowl.
to stay healthy
Yeah.
and he's got to play a ton
Mhm.
and they've got to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they have what, 8 games left, somewhere around there. 8, yeah, 9. I think it's 9. They're 8.
Yes, 9. It's 9.
9. So yeah, it's a long season, but I don't know if they could have got more than what we all saw. So
But what's interesting is there was a wide receiver. That's a question that you can ask at any time.
you can't go by what the Cowboys do and say, it's comparable
But yeah,
to
so
this.
talk about what they just gave up. Now they just lost their quarterback for 4 weeks
Mhm.
minimum,
Mhm.
right? They're not playing that well anyway. They're not a shoe in for the playoffs at all. And what did they just do?
They traded a 4th round pick to the Panthers for Jonathan Mingo, who has 0 career touchdowns. He has 55 career receptions, 0 touchdowns
Is this the
for the
second
Panthers.
year?
I believe this is his 2nd year.
Yeah, but that trade, and again,
But they
It's
got more for Mingo, the Panthers did, than the Titans got for DeAndre Hopkins.
Jerry
it-
Jones is an idiot.
yeah, Jerry.
Another thing that you
but
can
then-
say at any point in time.
But then
come on.
the Kansas City Chiefs are not in the same boat as the Dallas Cowboys. The Kansas City Chiefs probably thought, listen, we can do it with them or we can do it without
Right,
them.
right.
You take your
They're
pick.
not desperate.
This is what we're giving up. Now the Cowboys are desperate. desperate.
Desperate.
Yeah, they're desperate to get something going. And so they would be willing to give up a little bit more. Plus, it's the age different. You're projecting that Mingo will be, a good wide receiver moving forward, as opposed to D Hop, because he has more years behind him than he does in front of him.
I'm looking to confirm whether it was 60% of the snaps and the Super Bowl. Do they have to win the Super Bowl or just make it to the
I
Super
believe
Bowl?
it's to win the Super Bowl.
They got to win the whole thing.
All right, Titans fans.
Yeah, because I'm sure they didn't just say, okay, if we make the Super Bowl, because more than likely, other than probably Baltimore and the Bills, I can't see, head up somebody beating the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're like, oh, more than likely we'll make the Super Bowl. It's about winning the Super Bowl. Then y'all can get the 4th round pick.
I see it here. They just have to make it to the Super Bowl.
Oh, they just gotta
not
make
win
it?
the Super Bowl. I think they just have to make it to the Super Bowl.
Well, the Titans may just be getting their 4th round pick. But
Still,
then he got to play 60% of the plays.
yes. And
Does
then-
that
and you gotta
60%
hit both.
count? Does the playoffs count, or is it just 60% of the regular
I
season?
think it's everything.
Andy Reid's going to get a call from upstairs. There's going to be 1 play left. Hopkins is going to be at 59.9% of the snaps.
Yeah,
The game is on the line. They're in the red zone, and someone's going to say, Andy, you can't do it. You can't put D-Hop in there. If you
Oh,
do that,
but-
he'll be at 60.1%, and we'll have to give up that pick.
Oh, best believe that goes on. That goes on in front offices, like especially with a team like Kansas City. Again, we don't need. We like, but we don't need. So if we get to the end of the season and we're 15-2, 16-1, whatever the case may be, no, Titans, we ain't giving y'all a 4th round pick. Hop, come on and sit down, for the remainder of the game. You're good. Teams do think that way. I would think that way. I'd be like, I ain't giving up a 4th round pick to them.
We have another receiver trade in the NFL.
Mm.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are trading a 2025 5th round pick to the New York Jets for Mike Williams.
A 5th round?
So
Okay.
Mike Williams, who fell out of favor with Aaron Rodgers,
Right. And they know they have Devontae.
Yeah,
And they have Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is trading a 2025 fifth-round pick to the New York Jets for Mike Williams.
Why does anybody ever question Mike Tomlin? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, here's what I would ask
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin. I guess this would be a question. Would you rather have Mike Williams or would you rather have DeAndre Hopkins for the same amount?
It is basically the same.
Yeah,
It's the same
basically
price.
amount. Yeah. I mean, you would
I'd
rather
rather
have
have
Diop.
Diop.
Yeah,
Like,
you'd rather have Diop, but does he fit what they want to do? That's the thing.
Time will
you
tell.
know? Exactly.
Well, what are tell
Mike,
me?
Mike Williams hasn't really done a whole lot.
He can't stay healthy.
He has about 3 good games a year.
He can't stay healthy.
And when he looks good, he looks really good.
When he's healthy, he's on point. That's all.
What
I
are
know.
the
He's a
differences?
stud.
What are the differences in Mike Williams and DeAndre Hopkins as receivers?
I think D Hop is a better catcher of the football than Mike Williams.
That's a big part of being a receiver.
Yeah, but it's not like Mike Williams can't catch. Like he's a habitual pass dropper. He's not. But if you're just talking about pure pass catcher, I think D Hop is much better than Mike Williams. I think D Hop worked better out of the slot than a Mike Williams does. Mike Williams is more of an outside guy, bigger body guy. When he's healthy, I think he's one of the better red zone threats in the National Football League, as is D Hop as well. So other than experience, I don't think there's much that separate these two guys because neither one of them are burners. And both of them, Mike Williams is a little bit bigger than D Hop, but both of them sort of play the same game in a sense. Mike may have a little bit more speed than D Hop, but their game is sort of kind of similar in a sense.
So the Pittsburgh Steelers are acquiring Mike Williams from the New York Jets for a 2025 fifth-round pick, according to Adam Schefter. We've seen Marshawn Lattimore traded from the Saints to the Commanders. We'll keep an eye on all things NFL trade deadline. If the Titans make a deal, you will know it as soon as we do. 615-737-1025. Willie is off with the Predators to Washington, D.C. Willie, have a great time.
Peace out,
Don't
Willie.
get into any trouble. Be on your
Be
best
careful
behavior.
in D.C., man.
Be careful in D.C. on election night. 615-737-1025. We are going to do a special edition of Ask D-Mace, a special Tuesday edition. Ask him anything within reason.
Yes.
Because we forgot to do Ask D-Mace last week, and I apologize. I should have known better, but we are going to make it up to you by doing it next. Get your questions in now, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
November 9th, mark your calendar and get ready to feel the thrill at the Iron Goddess Motorcycle Show at the fairgrounds this Saturday, November 9th, as female riders from all over the world will be in attendance. Come out and see some of these beautiful custom bikes, from choppers to mini bikes, from cruisers to sports bikes. All makes and models are encouraged to come. Get your tickets now at IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com. That's IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com, which is sponsored by our friends over at Law Tigers. Enjoy a day of live music, vendor village, tasty foods, and so much more. Show off your bike in one of their many competitions and win cash prizes. All spectators are welcome, and kids under 16 are free with paid tickets. So get your tickets today at IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com, which is sponsored by our friends at Law Tigers. Can't wait to see you there.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
And there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now, on 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick on his way to the airport to catch the Predators' flight to Washington, D.C., where they will take on the Capitals tomorrow. But because last week, we didn't realize this until the end of the show on Friday. I think David walked in and said, "Are we doing Ask D-Mace today?" And I was like, crap.
Dang it.
We forgot. And we feel really bad about it because we know how much you love Ask D-Mace. And we thought this would be a good opportunity to make it up to all of you fine folks out there. We will continue to monitor the NFL trade deadline. As we mentioned before the break, Mike Williams traded the receiver from the Jets to the Steelers. Earlier, Marshawn Lattimore, Pro Bowl cornerback, was traded from the Saints, who fired their coach yesterday, to the Commanders, who are going for it, and I don't blame them. So we will continue to bring those news items to you, especially, of course, if there is something related to the Tennessee Titans. But in the meantime, let's get to your calls and texts. 615-737-1025. Jerry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a question for Derek. Jerry, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Thank you. How are y'all doing today?
Good, thank you.
Teammates.
Yes.
Has there been a player that you inspired or mentored that taught you something that you didn't know?
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. I tried. I'm not gonna say I tried. I made sure that one, whatever I could do for a teammate in regards to the receivers in the room with me, I did. If they needed advice, ask questions, whatever, be in them for them. I made sure I did that. But I also made sure that because in this business, you either adapt or you fall to the wayside. So I would always watch guys that I played with in particular. I would watch things that they did and how they got open because I wanted to implement that into my game. I would always watch Kevin Dyson and watch how he got open because Kevin's about 6'2". And a 6'2", 6'3" guy is different from a 5'11" guy in regards to running his routes. So I would watch Kevin in practice to see what he did at the top of his stem to get open. How did he break down? And I would use that. I would implement that in my game. Or I would watch Chris Sanders. Or, I would watch Mark Clayton when he got drafted. What were some of the things he was doing, the quickness and everything else he was doing to get himself open? So I tried to take bits and pieces from receivers that I had an opportunity to watch closely, or whether it was veteran receivers like Jimmy Smith, just watching him when I was a younger guy, how he approached the game, his mental attitude, his ability to go out there and just dominate. How did he do it? How did he catch the ball? Those are things that I watch and I took from those guys. So, my game as I begin to get older in the league, it started to evolve. And a lot of it was just watching other guys and implementing what other guys did into my game.
Our friend Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. First with a dad joke, then a question for Derek. Eric, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Okay, this is of course reverse to last week to Halloween. Derek, what do you call ghost poop?
Poop.
Is that right?
No.
a boo-boo.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah, I can see that. I see it now.
I'm a dad now, so that's funny to me.
Well, actually, this is kind of not an ask me, mate, but I got a little rant, and you can respond to it. This is the question you asked last Thursday. I never got to it. I wanted to respond about tanking and everything, but here's my thoughts on this. See, look, guys, I'm a season ticket holder. I've been a season ticket holder since 2000. I pay my hard-earned money to go to the games week after week after week. I don't care if this team is 0-16 in the last home game. I want to win. I mean, I don't pay for parking because I either go with friends or catch the bus downtown. But I know a lot of people not only pay for the season ticket, they pay for parking. They pay the tailgate, which means that tons of people have money invested in the teams, into the game, and everything. Do you really think that Titans fans who are going to these games, tailgate, and paying money week after week after week, they say, "Oh, I don't mind going to games just to see them tank"? Because if I'm saying that, then that means I'm throwing my money away. I'm flushing my money down the toilet. I'm not going to pay my hard-earned money to go to that stadium and then to just turn around and say, "Oh, I want them to lose games so we can get a better draft pick." I really believe that most of the people that are saying that are people that are not heavily invested in this team. You can say you're a hardcore Titan fan, but a hardcore Titan fan, people who love this team, are not saying that, especially if you're fans who are just casual fans who don't go to the games, who are watching the games home on television. I believe that's where most of that talk is coming from, not from people who are paying their hard-earned money to go to the games, to tailgate, to pay for parking. Do you really think that those people are saying, "Well, let's just go ahead and tank it, just throw our money away"? So that's what I want to get off my chest, guys. Y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Eric. It really is it really is.
That's the question. That's the question.
That is the question. And I think we're fairly divided on this station as to what the Titans should do. And I get it. You know, Jared, who is a Titan season ticket holder, by the way, I get where Jared is coming from. This idea that if this team is bad, let's just use the game against the Patriots, for example. By losing to the Patriots on Sunday, I believe the Titans fell from 2nd to 9th in the draft order. Now, there's still half a season to go. So that's going to change many, many times over the next couple of months. But I think Jared's point was, if this season is going to be bad, at least make it worth it for the fans by getting something that can help them moving forward. A top draft pick, in the case of Jared and other Titans fans, a change in leadership. I get all of that. I said on this show yesterday, when I was informed that the Saints fired Dennis Allen, I was thrilled. Because and look, they traded Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore was one of my favorite players. Great player. Sad to see him go, but the Saints apparently are getting 3 draft picks out of it. I'll take it. Like, the Saints aren't going anywhere this season. They need a lot of work. But if they can get significant draft capital for one of their best players, I'm sorry to see Marshawn Lattimore go, but I'm okay with it. But I also hear what Eric is saying about Titans fans who pay for season tickets, for PSLs, to tailgate, all the concessions, jerseys, all of those things. If you are going to invest your hard-earned money in a product, you want to see a winning product. And for some of those people, it's winning games now, even if it may hurt in the future.
Yeah, and listen, I don't understand people like that. I get it. You can be that way, meaning want your team to tank and want your team to lose. There are people out there like that. I just don't. I can't prescribe to that. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what losing on purpose feels like in anything. I didn't even lose to my son on purpose when we played video games when he was younger. And he'll tell you that. He used to get mad.
What games?
It was just like, what was it? Mario Kart or one of these games where you're racing. We used to always play the Shrek game. We love playing the Shrek game. And he would get mad when he didn't win. It was like, dude, you just got to get better. You got to get better. I wasn't raised to give up or to give it to you. Like, here, I'm not going to put up a fight. Here you go. So I don't know where that thought process come from. I can't comprehend to someone that says that my team needs to tank. That tells me that either you've never played sports or you played sports but really didn't care about playing sports. You just played it just to be playing it because it was something to do, activity, physical activities, and you wanted to be around your friends. So you didn't care whether y'all won or lose. You were just out there with your buddies.
You still get a juice box.
Yeah, you still get a juice box. I don't know what goes through people's minds, especially when they're paying their hard-earned money, like Eric said. You're paying your hard-earned money every week to go watch a team, and you're saying, well, this team should tank just to get a better draft spot. Again, you can do that. That's your business. But I don't understand. You can't make me understand that. I will never understand that. So to me, the Titans don't get better by losing. They don't. I've never seen anybody that gets better by actually losing on purpose. Because what happens here, if this theory is correct, lose, tank on purpose. All right, are you going to convince the players to do that? Because that's the only way it can happen. If you convince the players to go out there and tank and lose on purpose. But then you got to guarantee me that I'm not going to lose my job. You got to guarantee me that you're going to pay me next season. If you want me to tank, you got to guarantee me my contract will be honored. Because what happens when you lose? People lose their jobs, and not just the head people. Players lose their jobs. Players get traded away. So why am I going to prescribe to that when there's no incentive in there for me? Tell me that you're going to honor my contract for the next 3 or 4 years. Then I may think about it. But if you ain't honoring my contract, man, get out my face. I don't know what you're talking about. Go take that to somebody else. That is what I deem, and it's been said before, that is a loser's, and I'm going to say that very slowly. That is a loser's mentality to tank and lose on purpose. Because that stuff comes back to bite you in the rear end. It does.
615-737-1025. We've got calls and texts for Derek. We'll get to those on the other side. But before we do, this week's Nashville's best deal is from Black Rabbit. Black Rabbit is a great spot to enjoy some Nashville vibes with craft cocktails, delicious food, and live music just steps from iconic venues. It's perfect for a night out. Snagging a $50 gift card for only $25 is a fantastic way to experience it. Get yours now at thegamenashville.com/deals. All supplies last.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood tests, test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and no one else. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. We will continue Ask D. Mace now with Chad. Chad is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com with a question for Derek. Chad, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, great show. Great work this afternoon, fellas. So, D-Mace, I
Yes.
love your speech about being a player and having to win. And I guess if I'm Kelly Holcomb going into week 17, 1997 at Minnesota, and if I can maybe win this game and build on that, maybe that's great as me as a player. But as a franchise, you win that game, you don't draft Peyton Manning. So you tell me as a franchise, do you want to maybe play some young guys on week 17? Secure that loss, and then maybe the next 20 years we go out like gangbusters and try to win everything, including Super Bowls. So that's where I'm thinking about big picture there. Moving on to my question, being a low-level musician gives me a chance to be a low-level connected guy with some of the NFL, and I am hearing some stuff out of Minnesota, speaking of the Vikings, that they are trying to work a trade for Jeff Simmons that would give the Titans a number one pick for Minnesota, and the Vikings would turn around and not only get Jeff Simmons, but maybe a third or a fourth or a fifth. They're working something out. Have you all heard anything and your thoughts?
Thank you, Chad. Chad, the insider,
yes.
apparently, telling us that the Vikings are working on a deal for Jeffrey Simmons. No, I have not seen anything
I have not
to that
heard
effect.
that
That doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen, but
Just hadn't heard it.
Just haven't heard it. But if you heard it here first, if this does happen, credit Chad.
Yes.
Credit Chad on all reports.
I understand the premise of, playing some of your younger guys, but you can only do that if your veteran guys are hurt. I think if your veteran guys are there, guys that have, bled and sweat all season long, did all the things you asked them to do during preseason, being in that facility, as much as you would probably want that first overall pick, it may not, to ask guys to sit down that have gave it their all. I mean, that's hard to do. That is hard to do. Now if you go out and you just lose because you're not a good team, then that's different. In Indianapolis, I think at that time they were not a good team across the board. And I'm not sure if they just decided to, hey, we're going to play all our young guys. We're not going to play any of our veterans, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. Because even playing your young guys, sometimes you only got so many of them that you can play, one. And then two, they're out there busting their tails. Why? Because this is their chance to show that they can play. So you may end up getting more out of them than you did out of your actual veteran starters that have been playing the whole season. So that thought or that model can work, but then it also can backfire on you. But is there any quarterback in this year's draft that is a Peyton Manning type of quarterback? I'm not sure there is.
It certainly doesn't seem like.
Yeah, and I love Shedeur Sanders. I do. And if the Titans have a chance to draft him, I would draft him because I think that kid is that good. With all that he's been through in Colorado, and he still remained focused with the offensive line being bad, people not liking the team because of his dad and all this other stuff, and he remained focused in all of this. That tells you a lot about his mental makeup when it comes to playing that position. So I would draft Shedeur Sanders in a heartbeat. But is Shedeur Sanders a surefire like Peyton Manning was? I'm not sure. But again, as much as that would be nice to get the first pick in the draft, I love what Lovie Smith did. I love it to this day. And listen, the Houston Texans may just want to thank him because they probably would have drafted Bryce Young with the number one pick. They probably would have. I'm not saying it's 100% sure they would have, but they probably would have drafted Bryce Young. And they may not have the success that they're having now with CJ Stroud. But Lovie Smith said, not on my watch. We're not doing this on my watch. I've been in those locker rooms. I understand those locker rooms. I've coached for 100 years. I'm talking about Lovie. I'm not doing that. My players deserve better. It's up to y'all to go out there and pick the right player for this team. It's not my job to lose on purpose. I love what Lovie Smith did. That's why he may not ever get another head coaching job again, along with, he's been up and down when he's been a head coach anyway. But he did lead a team to a Super Bowl in the Chicago Bears. But I love what he did. He was like, no, listen, I'm not tanking. I'm not throwing the game away. Who do you think I am? So that I can have that on my resume, and then it ends up coming out that, oh, yes, I agreed to help, basically throw a game. No, not on my watch. Y'all find somebody else if that's what y'all want. Flores did the same thing. I'm not tanking for you. You the owner of this team, but I'm not tanking for you. You want somebody to tank for you, then get another coach.
Trey is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Trey, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Good,
doing
thanks.
Good, Trey.
Hey, D-Mace, do you remember your first catch and who was it against and what route did you run?
Okay.
Y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Trey.
Thanks, Trey, for the call. Absolutely, I remember my first catch in the regular season. I remember my first catch. I remember it because not only was it a catch, but it was a fumble. The formerly Oakland Raiders. We were playing the Oakland Raiders in Memphis. And Oakland, by the way, had more fans than we did at that game. But the Oakland Raiders, and we had talked all week. And this goes into, hey, listen, coaches, all they can do is tell you what to do. They can't go out there and make you do it. Coach Steckel and all the other offensive coaches were like, listen, especially young guys, this team loves to strip the ball when you catch it. Hayes, those guys, they love to strip the ball when you catch it. They got long guys with long arms and they're physical, but they love to get their hands in there to try to rip the ball away when you make the catch. And I said, you know what? Yes, coach, I hear you. I understand. I'm even watching film of it. Like, yup, I know what to do and I know what not to do. So I line up as a slot receiver, starting slot receiver, because Derek, the other Derek, what was Derek's last name? Derek Russell. He was hurt. He was a veteran guy. He was hurt. So I end up being the starting slot guy. I get in the game and boy, am I ready. 3-step drop, Steve. He see me, I'm wide open. Make a quick move, boom. Beat the older statesman. Catch the ball. I'm good. Boom. Turn up the field. You know what happened? Same thing Les Steckel said was going to happen. They stripped the ball from me. And they got it. They got it back. And the first thing I did when I went to sideline, he gave me that football and he said, hold on to it. I held that football for the rest of the game. If I wasn't on the field, I had a football in my hand. So, yes, I do remember my first catch as well as my first fumble.
So the lesson here, everybody, is the ball did not bounce Derek's way.
Exactly.
High and tight.
But he turned out more than okay. Terrell is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. He'll wrap things up on Ask D-Mace. Terrell, go ahead.
Hello. Yes. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
How y'all doing?
We're doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine. Look, me and my buddy here I teach over at John Overton, and everything we talk about Titans all the time. So, I agree with you. We ain't gonna not tank. Let's get ready and everything. But let's talk about next year. And I really like to hear these May stocks. My thing is, I don't think we need to draft a quarterback in the first round. I think, wherever we land, and if we can get high enough, I would like to go get James Pierce and get us a dang defensive edge rusher. And then maybe fix the right tackle. So my man Stedman, he get crazy about that tackle story. But I'm just saying, I think we ought to do that right tackle and maybe take a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance and everything, let them battle out. And then if we can find a better wide receiver. But he's saying, but you made that comment about Shedeur and Sanders and everything, and maybe Cam Ward. He likes Cam Ward and to draft Cam Ward and then go get him a right tackle.
And D Mace, I would love to hear, what would you think if you, I guess play the GM. I think we ought to go get James Pierce. He says go draft the quarterback. What you think?
Thanks, Terrell. Quickly,
Thanks,
Derek, what do you think?
Oh man, listen, Pierce wouldn't be a bad pick. Hunter wouldn't be a bad pick. But listen, you need a quarterback. This is a quarterback-driven league. Yes, you can have, those edge rushers that are wonderful, but ultimately you're going to need somebody underneath center that can win you ball games. Maybe you can get a quarterback in the later rounds, but I'm not sure at this draft that will happen. If you want to get your quarterback in this draft, you're going to have to get your quarterback in the top 5, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, which I love, or Cam Ward. Those are the 2 guys at this point that are at the top of the board. But we know, as we know, the draft, they will talk themselves into, another quarterback that can potentially rise in the draft. They will teams will talk themselves into drafting a quarterback that shouldn't be drafted in the top 10. So right now it's Ward and Sanders, but as the process get going, there might be a 3rd or 4th guy that many look and say, well, he's a top 10, top 15 pick. So, but I come from the school of thought, man. This is a quarterback-driven league. It's great to have a great pass rusher. It's great to have a great corner like Hunter will be, I believe, or receiver. But you got to have that guy underneath center. You have to.
615-737-1025. Thank you for all of your great questions. Maybe we'll do Ask D-Mace again on Friday as well, since we have to make up for last week. But great participation, everybody. We will get back into the NFL trade deadline. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick en route to Washington, D.C. with the Predators, who will be back in action tomorrow against the Capitals. All coverage here, of course, on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It's a back-to-back for the Predators. They'll be in Washington tomorrow and Florida on Thursday to take on the defending Stanley Cup champion Panthers. The trade deadline in the NFL is a couple of hours away. We've already seen some big moves around the NFL. Marshawn Lattimore traded from the New Orleans Saints to the Washington Commanders. Believe that trade is now official, seeing as the Saints just tweeted about it. We've seen Mike Williams, veteran wide receiver, traded from the New York Jets to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This morning, we saw Zadarius Smith traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions. So a lot of big moves happening so far today. Derek, the NFL trade deadline is interesting to me. You know, of course, I'm used to covering the NHL trade deadline, and I was mentioning this to you and Willie at one point earlier in the show. That it's interesting to me to see the value of certain players in the NFL versus the NHL. For example, Marshawn Lattimore. I am a Saints fan, as I've noted a few times over the past couple of days. Marshawn Lattimore is a great player. I would argue one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL since he entered the league. They got 3 draft picks for him, according to reports, which is quite the haul. I believe it was a 3rd, a 4th, and a 6th, I want to say, according to reports. And I'm thinking to myself, if Marshawn Lattimore were an NHL player, I feel like that would be like a 1st-round pick and a prospect. So it's interesting for me to see the value. First of all, I feel like the NFL trade deadline today seems to be bucking that trend. But the NFL trade deadline isn't usually as active as the NHL trade deadline on the actual day. As I said, it appears that won't be the case today. But it's interesting to see the values, how valued, premium players are in both leagues.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of compare,
right?
The two, because even though you have a trade deadline in the NFL, you don't see teams where at least it's not customary for teams to, make a lot of moves during the trade deadline, especially not on the last day, because you always got to come up with the compensation and then the salary, the remainder of the salary. And then is a guy on a expiring deal, or is the guy, does he have 2 years left on the contract, and how much of the cap hit is that, or would that be, and how much money do you have in regards to your salary cap? So, and I'm sure it's that way in a sense with hockey. But you have to really, know what you're like. You really got to cross your T's and dot your I's in hockey, because these are, contracts that, what is the word? What am I?
They're guaranteed.
Yeah, they're guaranteed contracts. So if you trade for a guy that has 3 or 4 years left in his contract, you got to eat up that whole contract, or either try to trade that person and try to at least ask that person to take a portion of that contract, and it still ends up hurting you down the line. The NFL works that way in a sense, but it doesn't. I think I'm not going to say it's harder to move a guy in the NFL than it is in hockey, or it's harder to move a guy in hockey than it is in the NFL. It's just, I think the NFL view picks a little bit different than what hockey does. Like, hockey can draft a guy in the 1st round and you don't see him for the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And that's okay. Everybody expects that. That's in the NFL, you can't do that. Even with quarterbacks that you should do it with, you can't. You can't say, I'm drafting Richardson with the top 3 pick in the draft and say he's sitting for the next 3 years. You can't do that anymore. So those draft picks are like really like a commodity. They're really and truly a commodity. So teams are not just willing to give it up unless they feel that they are one player away, i.e. the Washington Redskins, even the Kansas City Chiefs, even though it was a 5th, but it can turn into a 4th. If you are ready to win, then you're more inclined to do that, to give up a little bit more. But if you're just making a trade to dump some salary or, to move on from a veteran player and the team knows it, they're not going to give you as much. They're just not, especially if they don't need that player. That's what happened to Kansas City. They liked D-Hop, but did they need D-Hop? I don't think they needed him. So if I don't need you, but I would like you, I give you a 5th round pick. Some people would say, well, no, you can get more for him. But Kansas City's like, okay, go try to get more from somebody else. But we're telling you what we're going to give you because in our minds, he would just be another asset that we have. We don't necessarily need him, but it's good to have him on our team. So this is what we're going to give you.
Jeremy Fowler of ESPN the Titans received inquiries on defensive line players, including Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day, per Jeremy Fowler's sources. Nothing had materialized as of this morning, but could be one to watch if a team steps up with a strong offer. So we're a couple of hours away from the trade deadline. The Titans have not made any moves since they traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs and Ernest Jones to the Seahawks. I'm wondering what Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker are going to do over the next couple of hours. Because although this team did win this past weekend, and I understand everything that Derek was saying earlier about wanting to maintain as close to a winning culture as you can by not throwing away the season for the players who are still on the team. I think we can all agree that the Titans are not in a place where they are going to be competitive this season. And I'm wondering if a player like Arden Key could be on the move now. What's Arden Key worth in a trade? Probably a 6th round pick, maybe a 5th round pick.
But it all depends on which team is trying to trade for him.
Right. It's probably a day 2 or day 3 pick.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 days in the NFL draft now, right? Okay. It's so long, sometimes I forget. But it's going to be a lower round pick. And I see the argument that, a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, what are the chances that that player becomes a meaningful contributor to the Tennessee Titans? Well, have you seen their special teams units lately?
Mm-hmm.
A 5th or 6th round pick could become a key special team.
Exactly.
And that could make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
I am also of the belief that the more picks you have, Jared likes to call them lottery tickets, and I agree. The more picks you have, you can take a swing on a guy, and if it doesn't work, you give yourself better odds of finding someone who can be an impactful player for you in some capacity. So I think that at this stage of the season, if Ran Carthon's main objective is to restock the cupboard with extra draft picks, which he's already started to do by trading DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones. If that's the main objective for the rest of the season, if anybody calls me, if I'm Ran Carthon and offers a draft pick of some form for Arden Key or Sebastian Joseph Day or Kenneth Murray, I take it. Like, the product on the field will suffer. Especially because of all the injuries that the Titans are dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
We know Lloyd Cushenberry is done for the year. Quandre Diggs is done for the year. Who knows when L'Jarius Sneed will be available again? He's missed the past few weeks. Chidobe Awuzie hasn't played basically the entire season. They're dealing with a lot of significant injuries. So the depth is going to be tested. As Derek has said many times, the depth on this team is an issue. So you may be fielding an NFL Europe quality team. Shout out NFL Europe. Should have never let that end.
No, they shouldn't have.
NFL Europe, but you're going to be fielding a semi-pro team, and you're going to lose games, which would, for some Titans fans, be the right thing to do. But I just think at this stage of the season, if Ran Carthon gets a call on any of these players and he thinks this is a fair deal for my team, I think you should take it. Now, if a GM calls and say, hey, we'll give you a 5th-round pick for Harold Landry, hang up the phone. But if it's a fair value to Ran Carthon, I don't think anything should be off the table between now and I believe 3:00 when the trade deadline is over.
I mean, you're right. I think everything should be on the table, but that doesn't mean you take anything for those players. Again, everything should be on the table, but you shouldn't take anything for those particular players because you do have a few assets that you can sort of leverage for against another team or for another team. But it also goes back to an Arden Key. Do you see Arden Key in your future moving forward for the next 3 years? Because that's essentially what you're talking. A guy like Arden Key, who is in Arden Key, 29, 30 years old, somewhere around there. So he
is 28.
28. So he's still a young man in football terms. So is he a guy that you see long-term? And I mean long-term, I mean 3 years. Do you see is he a guy that you see long-term, or is he a guy that you're going to have a problem with signing back and you may lose him for nothing? Now, you may get a compensatory pick if you do lose him. I think you would get one if he chooses to sign with another team, but you don't know what that pick will be. So you could potentially get nothing and he walk. Or do you believe that he's a part of your future moving forward with him only being 28? That's what you got to weigh. Or when you're talking about Harold Landry is about 27, 28 years old. Is he another guy that you see in your future? Or is he a guy that you can sort of dangle out there and say, hey, listen, this is what we're looking for in regards to Harold Landry. We're looking for a fourth round pick, either or.
So let's use the Za'Darius Smith trade as a comparable because he is a pass rusher as well.
How old is Za'Darius? He's young too. He's is he 30 yet?
David, would you mind doing the honors of researching that for me while I pull up the return on this trade?
He is 32.
Oh, he's 32. So he's an older guy.
So the Lions, let's see, the Browns landed a 2025 5th rounder and a 2026 6th rounder for Za'Darius Smith and a 2026 7th rounder. So if a team were to call asking for Harold Landry and they said Za'Darius Smith just went for a 5th and a 6th, and another team offers you that same deal. Now, Landry is younger.
Yeah.
So you have to play that factors into it. So let's bump it up. Let's bump it up around each. Let's say a team offers you a 4th and a 5th for Harold Landry. Would you consider that?
Yeah, I would consider it. But then again, I would say, what is our plan? What is the plan? Do we see Harold Landry as a foundational piece moving forward for the next? He's 28 years old for the next 3 years, which will make him 31. So is he one of those guys that we believe that can be a cornerstone to our defense well into his early 30s? If you believe he is, then if you want to part ways with him, I think you got to start at a 4th round pick. I think you do.
I think, look,
but if you don't see him as that and you're just thinking in your mind, you're not saying this to anyone,
right?
But in your mind, you're thinking, well, no, he's not a guy that we want to move forward with because of the contract and everything else. Then, yeah, getting a 4th and a 5th would be good. But I would be looking for a 4th, possibly 3 picks like Za'Darius Smith got. I will be looking for in the ballpark of a 4th 1 year, a 4th and a 5th this upcoming season, maybe a 5th or 6th in the next upcoming draft. So I will be looking for multiple picks. Not to say I would get them, but if I'm looking at his comp in a sense, Zadarius Smith, then I'm looking for sort of the same package, but one up on a draft slot.
Okay. So it was a 5th and a 6th for Zadarius Smith. So because Landry is younger, I bumped it up I bumped it up to a 4th and a 5th.
Exactly.
And look, I'm guilty of this too with the players on my favorite teams. Fans of teams tend to overvalue their own players.
Yes.
So Harold Landry has been a productive member of the Tennessee Titans for many years. But compared to other players at his position that do the same thing, where does he truly rank? And that's the question. And so, I agree with you. Like the other thing that a lot of fans do, and again, I am guilty of this as a sports fan. When my team has a player or players who are about to enter free agency and a trade deadline is coming up, and you're like, you've got to trade the guy. You can't let him walk for nothing. I'm usually of the mind that if you can get an asset for an expiring contract, you should absolutely do it. Now, if the Titans were competitive and they wanted to hold on to a guy as a quote unquote own rental, that would make sense. Where the Titans are right now, they're not going to be competitive. They're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, if as long as it's not nailed down to the floor, the Titans should trade it. And even then, they should get a crowbar and try to get it out of the floor if it is nailed down to the floor. But it will be interesting to see what happens. David has sent me a text. Okay. From Diana Rossini, very popular around these parts of The Athletic. She tweets, the Titans have received calls on a trio of defenders: Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, and Sebastian Joseph Day. So according to Diana Rossini, the Titans have received calls on Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, and Sebastian Joseph Day. And let's talk about Jeffrey Simmons for a moment, and then we'll have Clark Lee on in the next segment. Jeffrey Simmons, to me, is the perfect example of a player that Titans fans overvalue. He is one of the highest paid players at his position. Jeremy Fowler, when he did his positional rankings in the offseason, when he talks to executives and such, Jeffrey Simmons, I believe, was 4th among defensive tackles in the NFL. So people certainly do think highly of Jeffrey Simmons around the league. But the production, albeit this past weekend, he was very good against the Patriots. We do have to point that out. Although it was the Patriots, he was good against the Patriots. Jeffrey Simmons is exactly the type of player where I think Titans fans have an overinflated opinion of Jeffrey Simmons relative to other players at his position that make a similar amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you trade Jeffrey Simmons, that is a sort of a organizational shift. If you trade Jeffrey Simmons, not to say that they won't, and they could, but if you trade Jeffrey Simmons, that is a organizational shift. You just paid him 2 years ago. You just gave him this massive contract 2 years ago. You just said he was your leader. He was one of the leaders on the team, and he's your leader on defense. So you go from all of that to then drafting, then potentially trading him away. Now, listen, you would have to get a first or second round pick if you're going to trade away Jeffrey Simmons. Because again, as much as we are probably disappointed with Jeffrey Simmons' play thus far this season, he's still a hell of a player.
So Diana Rossini, she added another tweet to this. She said, I had one team say today we gave Tennessee a call just to check on Simmons, but we knew the answer before we even picked up the phone. It was no.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so because they understand that, listen, you can call about our guy and we can't stop you from calling. But we know once we pick up that call and if we decide to go down that road, there's a shift. You're making a shift in your organization.
That certainly feels, of all of the trades the Titans could make, if you are trading Jeffrey Simmons, similar to the Saints trading Marshawn
Yes.
Lattimore. If you are trading Jeffrey Simmons, that is a clear indication to your fan base that this is a dreaded rebuild.
Yeah.
That is the move.
Yeah, I can't see it being anything else other than that, because again, he is your top player. And I know the season hasn't gone the way we would have liked it in regards to his play, but he still is a guy that offenses game plan for. 4 hands on him. Make sure you know where he's at all times, because if you don't, he can wreck a game if you leave him one-on-one. So if you do go down that road of potentially trading him, yeah, you're telling your fan, you're telling everybody, listen, we're starting over, because we've essentially given away our best player. And I know many people say Pollard is the best player, which he probably is, depending, based on the way he's played this season. Yeah, he is. But make no mistake, Jeffrey Simmons is their best player.
615-737-1025. We will be joined next by Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea. The Commodores are bowl eligible for the first time since 2018. We will talk to Clark about that and more. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's never too early to start thinking about the big game. And this November, which it has started already, Zen Sports, the new sportsbook in Tennessee, has launched a brand new sweepstakes for all its Tennessee customers. The Big Game Sweepstakes. That's a name for you. The Big Game Sweepstakes, where you could win a grand prize of 2 tickets to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans or $10,000 cash. And what's more is Zen Sports will also award 50 additional prizes, which include 2 tickets to any Tennessee sport event or $100 cash. Want in on the action? You can earn multiple entries every day just by betting on Zen Sports, betting on the Zen Sports app. For every bet you place, you will earn 1 entry, and for every dollar you bet, earn an additional entry, like parlays. Earn double the entries on every parlay place. So what are you waiting for, people? When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $100 no danger first wager. So we got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of good stuff going on with Zen Sports. If you make your first bet, if your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. So start betting with Zen Sports and download their app today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Adam Vingan and Derek Mason here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea. Clark, first off, congratulations on your win this weekend, becoming bowl eligible for the first time since 2018. And after the win, Diego Pavia was interviewed on the field by SEC Network, and he told an interesting story about his first interaction with you. He said the first time he walked into your office, he looked you dead in the face and said, "I'm going to take you to a bowl game." And he said that you hesitated a little bit after you heard that and said, "If you take me to a bowl game, you can have anything you want." I want to hear about that conversation from your perspective.
Well, it was two competitive people and hungry people that were locked in a moment where guarantees were being thrown out, and I was liking what I was hearing. But no, Diego's a special guy, and he's everything he said to me, he's followed through on. It's just incredible the level of consistency he's shown and the level of impact he's had on our program. And he'll continue to have. And I think there's both a feeling of, charging at this final stretch of the season and what comes after that we're going to try to make as good as we can possibly make it, but also a legacy that he leaves in just a short time where, he's kind of reset the expectations of that quarterback position and what it means to put the team on your back. I mean, it's been incredible to watch, but certainly I remember that moment, and one of many that I've shared with them that are deeply meaningful for me.
A major part of your team's win on Saturday was special teams. We have been talking a lot about special teams around these parts as it relates to the Titans specifically, but your special teams has been clutch all season long. What's been the key for that unit to be as productive as it has been?
Well, we've strengthened in that area through our time here, and a lot of that has to do with just upgrading personnel as we've gone and recruited and retained the right guys, and we've gotten bigger, faster, stronger. And on special teams, when it comes to return units, covering the other team up in the blocks, or with respect to when we're covering punts or kicks, closing spaces and being physical. I mean, those are things that take the physical traits. That said too, we've had a system here that we've retained the entire time. Obviously, with Justin Lustig leaving and Jeff Lepak taking over, we kept the DNA the same. So there's a comfortability in the system, and again, we've continued to upgrade personnel, and that's helped. And then you've got a couple of folks that are really, really standing out right now, just in terms of elevating the play on the field. And you look at Brock Taylor and what he's done. You look at Jesse Mirko and what he's done in our kicking game, and then Martel Hyde as a returner certainly has made a great impression, and Julian Ashby, our snapper too. You can't talk about the kicks and the punts without acknowledging the fact that someone's got to deliver that ball on time and in location. And so all of that goes kind of together to make for a winning formula. And I think what we want is to go a little bit further. I mean, just to continue to generate explosive plays that help change the game. One of the key factors in this weekend's game will be field position. And obviously that goes through all three units, but special teams will play a huge role in making sure our offense has short fields and their offense plays on long fields. But for us to win right now, it's obviously an important part. It's foundational to our success, and so we put a lot of time and attention to that, and we're led by a great special teams coordinator, and our players have bought into it.
Yeah, you guys are doing a wonderful job in the special teams area. A lot of times, if you see a good special teams coach, typically the team is a good team as well, because a lot of those special teams guys are your second tier guys. They're not normally your starters, but they're the guys behind them. So when you can have a wonderful special teams like you guys have, that's a testament to the roster and to your team as a whole.
And I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And we talk about that. I mean, if you look at, bowl eligible teams, if you look at championship teams, the correlation between special teams play and, elevating team performance, it's I mean, it's not subtle. I mean, it's dramatic. And so, as there are teams that can, we have a study that goes back a ways and talks about NFL teams that have made it to the Super Bowl and, done some great things that were really underperforming in one of the three phases, but it wasn't special teams. If you can be a lead in that area, you have a direct impact, even when you're underperforming in offense or underperforming in defense. That those teams, give yourself a chance.
Now, Diego gets a lot of the shine on this offensive unit, and rightfully so. The kid is just he's just a dog out there. He's going to do it all, whatever it takes to win a football game. But you look at guys like Eli Story, your tight end, who's leading the SEC in yardage, receiving yardage amongst tight ends. How special is this young man? Because a quarterback, two best friends to a quarterback is obviously the run game, but then most importantly, after that, a reliable tight end, a guy that, you could throw between the hashes, a guy that's going to make those tough and hard catches for you. And it seems like Eli has been that guy for Diego.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they have a really cool connection in general. I mean, Eli was a quarterback and competed against Diego at New Mexico State and, made the transition to tight end, but even a year ago was still in the quarterback room with meetings and that sort of thing. Obviously, in coming here, he came to play tight end. So now this is his first full season training as a tight end and in the tight end meeting room. And man, has he made a difference for us. Such a reliable target, such an explosive playmaker. Obviously has a big catch and takes a huge hit at the end of the game to get us a 10-point lead. And that's been just part of the story of our season is his performance, and he's getting recognized now as a result, and he should. He's earned it. And I think we're just only scratching the surface of what he's capable of. And I think Eli will be a guy that has an opportunity to play a long time in the NFL. I mean, he's got a real skill set, but the coolest thing about him is he's an absolute ambassador for our program. He's a great human being, very deep faith and a spiritual leader within the team. This guy is just all class. And, I just like with Diego, I mean, I think, paths intersect for a reason. These guys, having the chance to come here and us having the chance to welcome them in has certainly made a deep impact on our success this season. But I think also has established and deepened a foundation here that will be a legacy, like I mentioned earlier, for future success too.
Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea joining us as he does every Tuesday at 1:30. Clark, again, congratulations on being bowl eligible. Good luck this weekend against South Carolina.
Thanks so much. Good to be with you guys.
Yep.
Our pleasure. Clark Lea joining us on the program. Vanderbilt, number 24, Vanderbilt, hosts South Carolina this weekend at 3:15. One trade in the NFL during our conversation with Clark Lea. The Steelers, who have been busy today, are acquiring veteran pass rusher Preston Smith from the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
So the Steelers are acquiring Packers veteran pass rusher Preston Smith. They've already acquired Mike Williams from the Jets. The Steelers, another team in position that they did not expect to be in perhaps at the start of the season, are going for it as well. We will wrap up the show with our final thoughts as the NFL trade deadline nears. What do we expect the Titans to do? Derek and I will discuss that next. This is DVD 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
November 9th, mark your calendars this Saturday and get ready to feel the thrill at the Iron Goddess Motorcycle Show at the fairgrounds, as all female riders from all over the world will be in attendance. Come out and see some of these beautiful custom bikes, from choppers to mini bikes, from cruisers to sports bikes. All makes and models are encouraged to come. Get your tickets now at IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com, which is sponsored by our good friends over at Law Tigers. Again, IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com. Enjoy a day of live music, vendor village, tasty foods, and so much more. Show off your bike in one of their many competitions and win cash prizes. All spectators are welcome, and kids under 16 are free with paid tickets. So get your tickets today for the Iron Goddess Motorcycle Show, which is this Saturday, November 9th at the fairgrounds. Can't wait to see you there.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Stillman and Company coming up next on 1025, 1063 The Game. Also a selfish programming note, because the Predators are playing tomorrow. Preds Insiders will be on tonight. Robbie Stanley joined me for the program this week. I believe it is on after Stillman and Company, right after Stillman and Company, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game, so you can get your Predators fix there.
Get your Predators.
So the trade deadline, the NFL trade deadline is upon us. It's an hour plus away. We shared some interesting news from Diana Rossini before we talked to Clark Lee. She tweeted 25 minutes ago, the Titans have received calls on a trio of defenders: Arden Key, no surprise; Sebastian Joseph Day, no surprise; and Jeffrey Simmons. She then followed that up with a tweet that said, I had one team say today we gave Tennessee a call just to check on Simmons, but we knew the answer before we even picked up the phone. It was no.
So I'd be like, I would have said, well, why you calling me? If you know I'm going to say no, why you calling me?
Hey, Rand, how's it going? How's the family? Great win. Hey, is Jeffrey Simmons available? How's everything else?
How's the wife?
Yes.
Slip that in real quick.
Exactly. Also, by the way, an update on a trade we talked about before the break. The Steelers are sending a 7th-round pick to the Packers for edge rusher Preston Smith. So there you go. But, I mean, it's interesting. Look, I learned this at a young age. There used to be a kid show on when I was a kid called Allegra's Window. I don't know if
Allegra's Window.
Allegra's Window.
Yeah, man. I'm 50. I'm 50 years old, so I know I didn't watch that.
I'm 28. I know I didn't watch that.
Shout out Allegra's Window. If anyone else has heard of Allegra's Window, please text it to us. I learned by watching that show. You never know until you try.
Yeah,
and that's what these other GMs were doing. You never know. Maybe Rand Carthon might have picked up the phone and said, you know what? I will trade Jeffrey Simmons today. I hadn't thought of that.
Well, 2 first-round picks.
Right.
2 first-round picks. Give it up.
But it's interesting that, considering where the Titans are, teams think that they can call and legitimately ask about Jeffrey Simmons.
You might as well.
Yeah, you might as well. Derek, you mentioned no mention in that, of course, of Harold Landry.
Yes.
So that must mean that Harold Landry is not on the market unless someone decides to blow Rand Carthon's socks off in the next hour or so.
I think it's hard, Adam, to trade homegrown players that are playing well, because ultimately that's what you want. You want to be able to draft these young men and develop them, and they become cornerstones of your franchise. They are a part of helping you win. And Harold Landry has been all of that. He's been a cornerstone. He's worked his way through injury, came back. He started off slow last year, but came on strong, and he picked up where he left off last season, this season. So it's hard to trade away guys like that I actually went out and drafted and you've watched progress through your program. But for the other guys like a D-Hop, as much as you loved him and respected him here, he wasn't a guy you drafted. Or the linebacker that they end up getting from the Rams. He wasn't a draft pick of theirs.
Ernest Jones.
He wasn't a draft pick, or someone else that they parted ways with. This season, they were not draft picks. It's harder to trade away guys that you scouted, then end up having a consensus, this guy can help our team. It was hard for them to trade away Kevin Byard last year. I understand that. So to trade away for a guy like Harold Landry to come up in trade talks early, that's, especially when he's playing well, that's a hard trade to make. You got to give me extra, not because he's this Joey Bosa type of guy. I don't even want to say Joey Bosa. Let me take that out. He's one of these other type of guys. I'm not a big Bosa fan, but anyway, he's not one of those guys, but he's the guy that you drafted.
Bosa catching strays in this segment for some reason.
Strays.
Can't believe that.
Yeah.
Man.
But he's a guy that you drafted. So it's hard to walk away from guys like that, So I can see why a guy like Harold Landry is not mentioned. And a guy like Jeffrey Simmons is like, nah, we're not trading him away. As much as fans would probably, say, hey, if you can get 2 first-round draft picks for Jeffrey, take it. Yeah, I would too, but you got to think long and hard about that.
And you don't see first-round draft picks traded a lot in the NFL.
Especially if they're productive. If they're out there doing their job.
Well, let me rephrase. I'm sorry. Not players who were drafted with a first-round pick, but first-round draft picks that teams can use in the draft.
Absolutely. So, I mean, listen, I'm not sure if there are going to be many moves made. What we have up until 3 o'clock. Is it 3 o'clock Central?
Yeah, 3 o'clock Central.
Yes, 3 o'clock Central.
So we got just a little bit over an hour. I'm not sure if the Titans are going to make many moves. I would be surprised if a guy like Harold Landry's moved. Arden Key, not so much so, but I think Arden Key's a good player. Sebastian Day, I think if he got traded, I wouldn't be surprised, even though I think he's a good player too. But do you see him as a guy that you're going to have on your team for the, foreseeable future?
I would like to see Arden Key traded. He's certainly playing like a guy who,
he
wants
is,
to
man.
be traded.
He is.
He's been quite productive these past couple of weeks. His stock is high. Strike while the iron is hot. I would like to see I would like to see Arden Key traded. And we'll see if there may be someone that we're not thinking about. We brought up Tyler Boyd yesterday. If a receiver needy team is, they're desperate. Look, it's last call. Bar's about to close. You haven't closed. You need somebody. Tyler Boyd is there, and you might be able to do something desperate in order to take Tyler Boyd home with you. I have no experience in this whatsoever. So you might be able to do something desperate, but I would like to see at least one trade. I mean, Arden Key seems like the number one candidate to be moved. He's been mentioned a couple of times, even before this weekend. He's had a couple of big games in a row. I would like to see Arden Key moved, even if it's just for a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick. If you want to keep, getting those so-called lottery tickets, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, if they chose to move away from Arden Key and get some picks, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But if you don't, then you got to think, about, okay, is he a guy? Because he's on an expiring contract, I believe. Is he a guy that we want to re-sign based upon the way he's been playing?
We'll see what the Titans do. The trade deadline is approaching. Jared will provide all updates on Stillman and company, and we will react to what happened at the NFL trade deadline tomorrow at 11 o'clock right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful and blessed Tuesday. And remember, I know it's election day, but that doesn't mean you have to be ugly to one another, regardless of who wins. Let's be Americans. Let's love one another and do as Christ said, love your neighbor. Okay? So peace. Have a wonderful day.